This is In the Middle with Josh and Sarah Siders. We get it. You're probably going through something that's asking you to dig deep, think differently, and hold on against the odds.
So these are our thoughts about starting new things, shutting some things down, and being with you, right there in the middle.
Welcome back to the In the Middle podcast, the podcast for those of us who haven't arrived yet. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Josh. Thanks for joining us again. Thanks for watching or listening from wherever you're at.
Yes. So we've got a fun, adventurous, shall I say, topic today.
Yeah.
Something that you've been reading.
Yeah, that's
it
true.
all
There you go.
circles back.
There you go.
Tell us about this because I'm getting looped in. I'm getting caught up.
Okay. Yeah. This is an article by Arthur Brooks. He wrote at the end of last month in The Atlantic. It is called "Why You Might Need an Adventure." So I'll try and summarize it as much as I can. You should go read it, check it out for yourself, for sure. But yeah, we thought we'd just talk about it a little bit and dive into it. So he starts the article out again. Why you might need an adventure, talking about Moby Dick and the narrator Ishmael, and how the narrator wanted, like, he kind of felt dull in his life, and so he set out on this adventure on this boat hunting this whale. And then he goes into how there's been some studies about why people need adventure in their life and why we need risk specifically, and how that helps us to kind of break through the doldrums of our own life, and how it helps us to rise to kind of more the fullness of what we're meant to be. And he then mentions Joseph Campbell, who wrote a book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces. In it, he talked about the hero's journey, the kind of the meta narrative that all stories are told, where the hero is challenged to set out on an adventure, and how that frames the ups and downs of the hero's life, and how the hero actually discovers that the valley points in his life has actually trained him and helped him grow, and has been transformative in his life. And so you see those stories all over the place, like from Star Wars to Harry Potter. All the stories that we tell, we read, we watch, have this kind of hero's journey baked in. And what he does in this article, Arthur Brooks, he applies the hero's journey to our life and says that if we can see our life as a part of the hero's journey, it actually helps reframe the challenges that we face, the risks that we're invited to take, and how that helps us develop as people as well.
Okay.
And so, it talks about how, like even mountain climbers, they enter this flow state when they're like high up, hanging off a mountain's edge, and how the risk actually helps their, I don't know if you would describe it this, but the kind of brain development, or at least like perspective and clarity of thought, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Risk provides that clarity of thought that we need sometimes. And then he ends the article contrasting Ishmael, who again is the narrator, with Captain Ahab, whose singular pursuit was capturing, killing Moby Dick, and how there's a difference between obsessing over one thing, and you might think of that like people that are just dopamine junkies that just live for the extreme because that's how they feel alive, versus people who feel dull or down in their life and need to rise to a challenge. And how Ishmael is the person that needed to rise to the challenge, set out on the adventure, but Ahab is the kind of dysfunctional person who is just fixated on that rush. So that's the summation of the article. I just found it really, really good. I actually sent it to a men's group that I'm part of, and just said, hey, the hero's journey. I've been kind of describing that to them and talking about our lives as one framing of our lives. And this just goes to reinforce, like, we really need to shift perspective sometimes in our life to think about, like, the dull moments are calling us out into adventure, and how we need risk and adventure to actually, like, form us and help us rise to the challenging occasions. So you have thoughts on that?
I'm like, I mean, so when you were introducing it, I always have this, like, this inner skeptic. Like, you have the, inner critic voice from a personality type. I have the inner skeptic. The inner skeptic is like, is this article really about how you just need a vacation and it should be interesting and it should involve rope climbing instead of, like, sunbathing? It's like, as you continue, you talk about the hero's journey, which is like not just something that happens in 7 days on an all expenses paid cruise. It's a longer term thing.
Yeah.
But he's saying why you might need an adventure.
Right.
And I think I'm like, so can you opt for it? Because a lot of times when it feels like we're pulled in, like our lives are hard, we don't usually see them as a hero's journey. Right. We don't necessarily think of them as forming us. Or that like there's maybe a process that we're in. We're like, this is hard. Hopefully it'll make me a better person and I have to survive it.
Or I need to escape it.
Or we need to escape it. Yeah. Yes. And so that's, and we see it like in like a singular circumstance. It's my marriage, it's my job, it's this city I live in. And we don't think of it as like cohesive. And we also feel like this, I go, oh, so can I opt for this challenge? Like, so what is the challenge that I can opt for? Or am I pulled into it?
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily have a say. I mean,
I think it's both. I think it's both. I think you can see your life in these circumstances as the challenge you need to arise to, to just push against and overcome. And I think there are times where you can opt for it too. I think it's a both and.
Yeah.
Now here's what's interesting is let me read this quote. Okay. He says, "A challenging adventure doesn't have to be physical in nature to bestow benefits. It can equally be mental. Indeed, learning new things with a spirit of curiosity and exploration has been shown to induce positive moods. This raises an interesting paradox that appears in this field of happiness research. People derive a lot more happiness from high-skill activities that require learning than they do from low-skill ones that don't, yet we typically settle for the latter. In other words, you will probably be much happier reading about philosophy or science than you will if you just scroll social media. So why are you still scrolling?" Right? So we tend to escape from these risks and challenges. We tend to opt for the low skill things where it's actually the high risk will be the high reward. Right?
Yeah. No, I think that is good. I guess like the idea of adventure is very compelling to me personally.
Right.
And at different points in my life, it's been like I could feel like I was willing to participate in the challenges in front of me, or like there was a certain like playful mystery to it. Like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen. This is cool. This is interesting. And the first one that comes to mind is like right after I got done with an internship after college, and I was like in between jobs, and I had like a bunch of things that seemed like they weren't going right. You know, like I didn't, my internship was over. I didn't have a job. But I had this like idea that I was going to pray and ask God to like help me get everything I needed. And in the middle of that, I think it was like a month. I had friends who I drove out to these like respective places with them, like literally just on the fly. Like they were like, "Hey, can you go? Or can you get in the car with us today?" And I would just go. I went to Long Beach. I went to Boulder. And then they flew me back on. So they paid for everything because I didn't have anything. Right. But I was like, I could go anywhere. So I did. And then my car broke down. And then, somebody gave me a bike. Someone let me live in their house. Someone gave me some money. I got a job. I got a reference, like of just a very obscure reference, got a job, found a place to live and roommates. And like one by one, and I actually was writing on MySpace. MySpace, on the back, y'all.
Throwback, yeah.
Before Facebook for you young folk, which is hilarious. But anyway, I would write on this blog in MySpace, and I'd be like, "Here's all the things I need, and I'm going to tell you when they happen." And it was like this, just like so much confidence, like a just obscene, unnecessary, gratuitous amount of confidence that, like, as you get older, you're like, "Wow, that's just beginner's luck."
That's a little presumption.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, for sure. But it was just really fun. And literally, just like everything did eventually happen. Someone eventually lent me their car while they were deployed. Yeah. And then I found a car on eBay.
That's right. Yeah.
And bought this. And it was just
and found a dude.
I found a dude. Who was you? I actually in my spirit of adventure.
Wait.
Dated like 5 guys.
Oh, okay. We didn't need to hear about that.
I was very adventurous.
Yeah.
Well, those were like 2-week relationships.
And then when you wanted to settle down and not have any more adventures, you found a dude.
Oh, yes. Though I don't know. I don't know what I was. You brought
A new adventure. A new adventure.
You brought a lot of stability to my life, which was great. Yes, and it was a new adventure, but it was like so much, so fast. Like within that month and in that first year, I met you. I met a lot of really great people. We weren't dating right away, but anyway, it was just really cool. And the lens of like, I just picture sometimes like those little kid, those little kid toys where you can like switch the scope and
the viewfinder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can be like, click, click. Yeah. And I think that like, there's a lot of times we have like a anxiety lens about like, oh my gosh, the future. And as I've gotten older and I've had more liabilities, more bills, more people to take care of, like I do tend to use the anxiety lens on my life. Yeah. And so I've thought like, especially when I left the nonprofit and was like, okay, what's next? I would tell my friends like, I'm going to have an adventurous lens. And it has been way harder this year to shift into that viewfinder of adventure and to see with possibility instead of like, I just have to, try to get through this. And so I think it's interesting that like, I guess my question to you, back to you about this is like, is everyone on a hero's journey? Is everybody a hero? Or are some people like just not aware that they're on a hero's journey and so they're not being formed? Or like only heroes are on a hero's journey? Like who's on a hero's journey?
That's a good question. I think it's possible that everyone can see themselves on a hero's journey.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of people that opt out. The human condition as it is right now is we opt for what's safe and comfortable a lot of the time.
Totally.
And so there's a lot of people that get in a rut or get in a, here's what's possible and I can handle and I'm going to stay safe right here because it's predictable.
Yep.
But the call to transformation is a call to change, right?
Right.
And change means pain, right? And we don't like that. Right?
No.
Or we don't like, the loss. We don't like the loss that change brings.
Yeah.
We don't like the pain that change brings. And so I think it's possible, but on the hero's journey, that's why it takes a mentor. It takes someone from outside your life system to come and make you more uncomfortable, and say, hey, there's more out there. We need your help. You can do this, that sort of thing. Get you unstuck for a moment. And then you're faced with the choice of paths you want to take. That's what I think. Anyway.
No, I think that's good. I think people like, sometimes there's this fatalism like, well, everyone else is on a hero's journey, but I'm not. I'm just struggling. Someone could potentially hear that.
Sure.
Or like, how do you know where you're at in your hero's journey? I think that's a big one. Like if everyone wants to take on their main character energy, and be like, okay, I'm a hero and I'm also something else, right? Because there's roles.
There's different roles. And here's what I would say, what I don't think the modern understanding of the hero's journey does well is turn the hero into a mentor. It's sort of like this self-fulfilling thing of main character energy. Yep. I go through my stuff for my own purposes and I am my own end. But I really believe to have an uninterrupted generational hero's journey, it's to see you actually become the mentor than to step into someone else's life and say, hey, I've been there too. Yeah. Let me show you how.
That's really good.
Right? So that's why I think people need to see themselves on the hero's journey. That whose completion is taking on another person, not as a project, but as a service,
giving
to future
back
generations. Absolutely.
Like David Brooks, no relation to Arthur Brooks, apparently. Talks in Second Mountain about the second mountain of life, second half of life, giving back. Yeah. And part of that is like the role of the sage, the role of the mentor, giving back. And when I think about that for women, it's like the menopausal journey of like no longer being a childbearing person who, is able to give birth, but it's like, well, okay, so what's my role now? And we've confused women's roles as like a singular thing. But it's like, no, that journey actually eliminates like the option of childbirth, which is increasingly stressful on your body, so that you can give back, so that you can contribute in these really interesting ways. And I think I've seen some like ideas that I even like in the second half of life, women influencers, they start talking to women about like becoming the main character in their story because they were always secondary as a mom or somebody else.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I get that. Like,
Right.
I feel like that's a piece that gets complicated for women because we very easily get lost in our roles.
Yeah.
But I'm also like, well, if you're trying to do that or reclaim that, then you might be missing the opportunity of where your life is right now.
Yeah.
So I think there's like to your point, there's an illiteracy around the hero's journey, right? Like it just drops you off and you're like the shining star and that's the end of the story. It's like, no, in order for this to work, in order for culture to work, we need to keep, keep it going.
I heard Denzel Washington was in an interview recently for Gladiator 2, which is going to be awesome. And he just dropped a nugget. He said, because the young lady who was interviewing him was asking him about, his career and things like that. He basically said, first part of life, you learn. Second part of life, you earn. The final part of life, you return. Right?
Wow.
That's a really great and succinct way to think. And maybe different kind of like stages or points, but same thing is like learn, earn, and return.
Wow.
And it's incomplete without those things.
Dude, that's wisdom right there.
Yeah.
Denzel Washington.
Yeah. That's it.
He's so cool.
Yeah.
I think that's nice to have it be in like concise ways, right? Like we have to figure out these concise ways to communicate what the hero's journey is and help people see like, okay, where am I at? And I would love it if like people in our spaces are curious about where they're at, like that it's part of the conversation, in the way that it's like, maybe irritatingly like, what's your Myers-Briggs? What's your Enneagram, or your StrengthsFinder? Like, but it's like, those are lenses. And we talk about where am I at in the critical journey with the Janet Hagberg's, layers of like the, spiritual development and human development, and developing that framework, which I don't think we've talked about on the podcast yet, but I think
we may have mentioned it a little bit. Yeah.
It's so helpful.
Yeah.
And it's so this is work you've been doing is like layering all of these parts of our journey on top of each other, and you can kind of find like, oh, I'm here on this, but I'm here on this, and it helps you like orient your soul in the world and in
it's like a developmental triangulation of like where am I at in 3D.
Yes, exactly. I think you're doing a lot of that
I call it the three lenses.
So
the first half, second half of life, the critical journey, and then the hero's journey. Because I think there are strengths and weaknesses to each one. But specifically, I've been helping men think through this. I think it's really helpful.
Yeah.
Especially when so many men are hitting a wall, or what we would call the wall, in their lives, and going, I don't know what's next, and I don't even know if I can get there. And so this is all very helpful, and even refreshing people's understanding of the hero's journey, because it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And helping men see that like there's a purpose for this pain that I'm experiencing, or there's a purpose for this change, or I didn't miss it. I didn't get off the on the off ramp of my life and just totally like that's it. I'm in I was talking to a great guy. He goes, I'm 35. I feel like I missed it.
Oh,
right.
What?
And I know. And I'm like, bro, you're just getting started. I'm like, let's go.
What did you miss? You can easily go get your MBA or whatever.
My point isn't him just saying that.
Yeah.
It's the mentality of like, whether you're 35, 45, 55, there are men saying that over themselves. And to come along and for just a moment be a catalyst to say, oh no, all of this is going to make sense in the next stage. Let's go.
Wow.
Right? You can do this. I'll help you.
Yep.
It's so life-giving to step into not main character energy, main mentor energy, and help people take that next step.
That's really good. And I'd love to, be having this conversation. So like offline for people who are communicating with us, whether it's in the YouTube comments or whatever, hit us up on inthemiddlecoaching.co. Like, let's talk about where you're at on this journey. Because the thing is like, if you're still in the first half of life, if you're in the first 40 years, you're probably still, you need a mentor. You need mentors, you need coaches, you need people to help you. And what we see is like there's this weird crowding effect where, if people are on a hero's journey, whether they know it or not, they might be like, okay, I'm on, like you talked about, there's this coasting or this feeling of like, I missed it, not knowing when I cross over. So people are coming up through their life and maybe they're making progress in their family or in their career or something. And then they get like all crowded around like the end of stage one and they're like, I guess this is it. If you don't know there's a second mountain, then there's just like a lot of people there. So whoever makes it through the wall, whoever makes it through into the mentors, like there's people who are kind of crowded at that point. And like, who's going to help me? And it's like, there's a few people that have made it through.
And I would say the big disadvantage that we have to living in the American culture right now says that you can do it on your own. You're so individualistic and alone in our pain and our self-doubt and questioning. And there's many of us that have come this far. But there's a great business book written long time ago that says what got you here won't get you there. So doing it on your own, burning the candle at both ends to get here, it's like so many people have done a great job and held it together and held it down to get here. But what got you here won't get you there. And that's the first and second half of life. That's the
You feel it so hard.
You do.
Towards the end of your 30s, going into your 40s, somewhere in your 40s, you start to be like, you push the old buttons and they don't work anymore.
I need a new toolkit. I need a new framework. I need a new understanding.
It's so disorienting. But especially if you don't know that it's coming. Like, I think for us, it started to happen and then someone said, here's a critical journey. And we were like, oh, and honestly, it was such a lifesaver.
Transformative.
But it doesn't fix everything. You're like, okay, I'm at the wall, or I'm in this kind of, this very narrow, eye of the needle where I'm disoriented and I'm going through. But like, I think that, I mean, that's where in some ways I still feel like I'm there. But I want to be, and I'm attempting to, mentor or coach or help people. And I've been at those points of those critical junctures for me back in like 2014, 15, 2019, where I was going through those like significant shifts or beginning them. I needed help, those were my points where I was like, help. I mean, and I have to get to, I'm not good about asking for help. Like I have to be like, bleeding out my ears to, typically
broken down.
I do. I have that I can do it. I can do it. And it's like, sometimes I'm like, do you know who says that? A toddler. Like, stop it. Stop. Like, I can do it myself.
It's true.
And it's like, so I don't want to feel like incompetent. And, I think that's something that there's just a lot of vulnerability in asking for help. And
it's true.
It's hard. But anyways, we have to do it.
I'll share, let me just close this thought with, I'll just share a point at which a risk helped me.
Oh, yeah.
So I, just over a year ago, I was in therapy and getting myself back and felt really good. There was just, some fallout at work and some really terrible things happened. So I was working with a therapist, and I felt like I don't know how to explain it. You know better than I do, but my central nervous system was coming back online. I was feeling myself, but then I hit a place of like what I would say just the doldrums. I'm like, I feel like I don't have anything to look forward to. Like, love my family. Love our church. Love what I'm doing, but I just kind of still feel numb and dull. And my therapist, I think it was in August of 23, said, I think you need to plan a trip. And I said, okay, I mean, if you think that will help, I know exactly where I need to go. I need to go to the mountains. I need to go on a hike a 14er. And bounced off you. You said, let's book it. And so it was a very, very low point when I got there. Like I remember waking up at 3 a.m. to get up and go on this solo hike. And I'm like, I don't want to go. And we drove all the, 8 hours to get here, spent all this money, that sort of thing. And I'm like, it was the worst, even trying to convince myself to get up.
Wow.
But I got up, got ready, drove an hour to the trailhead mountain, and hiked like 1 foot after another. I hit the halfway point, felt like I don't want to be here. Like I could see, it was actually hiking two mountains at once, one trail, a loop that hit two mountains, Grays and Torreys in Colorado. And I'm like, I want to give up. I could see the mountain peaks. It was a beautiful day, October last year. And I'm like, I don't want to go here. So it was actually like I had to force myself to go because just mentally, I was just not there. And I'm going to write a little bit more about this on my Substack because I really do think God and I had a very long conversation because it was me and him, hardly anybody else on the trail. And I felt like he actually gave me some tools to like get through and like be centered and have some meditative tools to use, and completed the loop. It was a beautiful, gorgeous day. It was as I was coming down, there's a couple guys that were like, I've never done this. Am I going to make it? Am I going to fall off the side of the mountain? So I'm like, you got this. It's great. It's beautiful. You're going to have a great time. Just very life-giving.
So like you became like the mentor.
I mean,
going down the mountain, literal and figurative.
Yeah, totally.
That's
so
funny.
it was just this, and I came back and I really felt like I was a different person.
You did.
Yeah, it was very, very transformative.
Incredible.
And so I needed that like I don't think I'm a dopamine junkie. I don't live for risk, but there are those times where I do need to like just get out there and do something challenging, do something I can't do in Kansas, which is, hike a mountain, or do something that is like, I feel more alive and more like myself.
Man,
so
that's a lot to like walk through.
Yeah. So I'm curious for you all watching or listening. Do you feel like you need an adventure, or have you been on an adventure that helps you come more fully alive? We'd love to hear about those moments, or if you need help thinking through that, or some support or encouragement, we'd love to be that for you too. So leave a comment, maybe share it on social media, and we'd love to continue the conversation offline. So with that, I'm curious about what you are listening, reading, or watching, listening to, reading, or watching, and what's saving your butt right now.
I'm reading this work, which I mentioned last time, and I'm still reading it. James and I just started the Fellowship of the Ring. And
so good.
He's been taking it to school.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that part.
So he's taking it because he misplaced The Alchemist, found it again.
Right.
And
That's
now
amazing.
doing that. So that's been fun. That's a little thing that we do. And I still do love the swerve about how the world became modern and Lucretius's poem. Guys, this is dense stuff, so I'll probably have more to report on it. I'm going to be reading this thing for a while. It's really good.
It's your adventure right now.
It's definitely giving me a mental adventure for sure. Yeah. Saving my butt, like I got to give friends, like as a general rule, I'm not going to name individual people, but I mean, just whether it's like my friend who I go on a walk with on like Wednesday or Thursday mornings, and just like that rhythm, and a conversation with a friend on Sunday when I was just really at a low point, and she kind of just like was a sounding board and helped me see things from like a nuanced perspective that I needed. Got a group of girlfriends conspiring to do something fun for another girlfriend. And so I don't know, it's just like cool stuff. And I'm really grateful for that.
That's awesome.
What about you?
So with John, we just finished Rich Dad, Poor Dad for Teens. Cool. Trying to help him form an understanding of money and wealth and how to use it, and how to be generous. So we just finished that yesterday. Today we just started Proverbs, like pulling out some lessons on money and stewardship and generosity from Proverbs. And it was really good. We talked about ants today. Go to the ant.
Ants.
Proverbial list.
You slugger?
You sluggard. So that's what I'm reading right now. And then what's saving my butt? Friends, same.
Really?
Group of men that I hang out with. We have just life transforming conversations about being dads and men and things like that. But even more so this week specifically, my smoker saving our butt.
Oh,
I made tacos al pastor.
Yes. So
smoked al pastor tacos, and it's delicious. And we kind
of eat
eating it
in
a
a
little
version
bit.
every day.
A couple dinners this week.
Yeah.
And we've been busy, so that's been
Yeah.
very helpful. It's saving our butts.
It totally is. Thank you for that.
Yes. So yeah, absolutely.
Major contribution.
Good and delicious. So yeah.
That's awesome.
With that, thanks again for watching. Thanks for listening. And just know that we're right with you, right there in the middle.
Absolutely. We'll see you next week.
This is the In the Middle podcast with Josh and Sarah Siders. Visit inthemiddlecoaching.co for other resources, courses, and helpful tools.